Are we live? It sure looks like it. But yeah, what's good, y'all? It's the Chillmeister Chris Gary with one less guest this time around. I mean, first of all, let me be the last to say Happy New Year to one and all, and we hope your 2025 project be damned is enjoyable and full of excitement ahead. But in all seriousness, though, one guest behind, the other two just won't show up. So I got Todd Atkins with me, and we're going to do this very special Focus Fights audio and video review of Rising 49 slash Rising Decade. First of all, Todd, how are you? First off, and when it came down to watching Rising 49, as we discussed in the preamble, what came to your mind?
Right, as we were saying offline, well, I think the first thing I would talk about, I know I talked about the rules thing, but first off, the big picture, like I said before, when I lived in Japan, 2002 to 2005, um, that's probably the apex of Japan MMA. So whenever I'm watching something like a Ryzen event, I'm thinking, how can they get back to that? Not who can go to the UFC, who can. I don't care about that. It's how do you get back to what you had, and in the big picture, the Japanese fighters need to be able to compete against foreign competitors with more consistency, and it still seems like that's something that is a problem.
Right, right, of course, especially considering the fact that it's like I said, before we hit live on this, only the truly good Japanese competitors can match up to the international elite. Like, for instance, Kyoji Horiguchi, it's basically more the exception than the rule when it comes down to facing off against guys like Nkazi Zulu, who had, a damn good showing in his fight with Horiguchi at Rising 49, even though he came up just a little bit short from turning from a South African pillar to a world renowned fighter.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, if they have guys who can fight with consistency, who are Japanese fighters, that's where they could turn a corner. But until they have that, it's going to be hard for them to get where and it's hard to know if that's real where they want to go because they let a lot of guys move on to the UFC and things like that. But just in my mind, where I prefer to see them go would be as big as possible, and they're going to need to have guys who can compete that are from Japan.
and you know what? Come to think of it, I'm just now realizing something, especially when it comes to the whole Kai Asakura situation, because of course, Kai Asakura just came into the UFC. He lost his first opportunity at not only a UFC title, but really a whole new audience and in a whole new fighting style against Alexandre Pantoja. Do you think that more Japanese fighters need to think? I mean, I know you're saying they need to think more fighting on an international style of fight against bigger competition. But do you think that they need to figure out whether fighting in a better rule set is more suitable for them?
Well, it depends on what their skill is. We were talking about this earlier with the bonsai fighters, but especially Kleber. You know, I wouldn't recommend he go to the UFC because he being able to up kick and kind of chop with his heel to the head, things like that. It's a massive weapon for a guy like him. He has a long body already, which is real difficult to, you know, go against someone like that in a jujitsu setting. It's really difficult. But being able to kick, you can create a lot of force with your legs kicking up, not just kicking straight up, but kicking out. And
Mm-hmm.
so someone like that, you wouldn't. I I think going to the UFC would be incredibly foolish for somebody like that because now you're taking that weapon away. But if it's someone who doesn't use a weapon like that or they're on top a lot, then yeah, they could. I don't want to see him go the UFC big picture, because like I said, big picture, you want to see Japan MMA get back to where it was. But I think it's more like the skill level, being able to just match foreign fighters in the skill level.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. I mean, come to think of it, it still kind of sucks now that you think about it that you still can't upkick a guy in, I mean, under unified rules without getting disqualified. You know.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that those are the two things I came away with. The ability of the Japanese fighter still is not there like it used to be. Because when Pride was at Apex, they had a lot of Japanese fighters that were winning fights. Sakuraba, Gomi, Kawajiri. There were. I mean, I'm sure there's a number of others. Like Yoshida, had a period where he was beating some guys. Um, you just had a lot of guys who were having some success at that
Mm-hmm.
high level, and Shuto was bringing some guys into the show. And now I don't necessarily see that. Whether they go to the UFC or whether they fight in Horizon, it just doesn't seem like overall that they're there yet. They've taken a step back.
Oh yeah, of course. Now, considering the fact that we basically have talked a little bit about this, let's go ahead and talk about the championship fights that were the main focal point of Rising 49. We're going to go ahead and start off with the fact that there's a new old king of the featherweight division, Kleber Koike, eking out a decision against Chihiro Suzuki. And I think that, I mean, have you ever heard of Verdict MMA, first of all?
I'm sorry.
There's a thing, I think it's an app called Verdict MMA.
No.
Yeah, it's basically like fan scoring, so to speak. You know, fans were scoring the fight round by round instead of the whole way through, like how it is in Rising, actually. But still, though, I'm pretty sure a lot of fans probably voted, with the mindset thinking that Kleber wasn't going to win this fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
But still, though, obviously, Kleber Koike Earths eked out the decision. He is now
Well,
once
I
again.
wouldn't say he eked it out. He dominated the fight.
Oh, yeah.
He
Oh,
didn't eke out
right.
nothing.
Of course, of course. But still, though, he was very happy. He was very jovial and blessed to actually be a champion in Rising again after what happened a little over 2 years prior with him going to a no contest with Chihiro. And I mean, you have to think when it comes down to these two fighting, will we see a rubber match between the two?
I mean, I guess that would be up to Rise. I don't know what their thoughts were after seeing the fight, or even the fans for that matter, because like I said, Koike was pretty dominant in the fight. It wasn't. I don't think it was a very close fight. There were some periods where they were on the feet, but he's savvy enough to avoid taking any big shots really, and Suzuki had to be very careful because, like I said, he doesn't have to take him down. He did take him down a few times on the ropes, but he can just pull guard and then it's on from there. And so, like I said, it just makes these guys dangerous. Souza too, if that's what he chooses to do. I think Souza's a little more well-rounded than Koike, but yeah, you get my point. It's
Mm-hmm.
just hard for guys to get their offense off, even if they're really great stand-up fighters, because they have so many things to put you in fear of.
I see. And I mean, come to think of it, I mean, third round, be down because it was pretty much every man for himself on that one. And oh, by the way, it was the first recorded fight round anywhere in combat sports to kick off 2025. So Rising can at least lay claim to that. But still, though, when it came down to those first two rounds, do you think it could have been like a bit one-sided?
What do you mean from Koiki's side?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I thought all 3 rounds were, but or yeah, I mean, I thought the whole fight was pretty one-sided. The even on the feet, it was kind of like he was giving Suzuki opportunities to hit him, but Suzuki was hesitant because, like I said, of all the danger. He reminds me a lot of Minotauro Nogueira when he was fighting in Pride. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Nogueira, kind of a similar body, a long body. He could pull guard if he wanted to. He could go for the takedown if he wanted to. He didn't have great takedowns, Minotauro, but he was just very dangerous, and that's Quickie is like him.
Well, I mean, Koike did say probably in the lead up to and obviously after the fight when he was thanking God and Lenny Hart for basically giving him the opportunity to grace to grace himself on that big stage. I mean, I know definitely he was thanking Lenny Hart for making him feel like he was a little child again, but still though, you can definitely say that Kleber is like this generation's Minotauro Nogueira for at
Yeah,
least his durability.
that and I think a lot of people, your average fight fan, like we were talking about, that pretty much just watches the UFC and nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, he's got what 34 wins,
Yep.
29 submissions.
Mm-hmm.
That's a crazy stat line right there. And
Yeah.
and I think he's only been finished like once.
Let me go ahead and check that.
Yeah, I think one of his losses was submission. I think the others were all decisions.
Yeah, one of his losses was via submission, and that was all the way back in 2009 for Deep.
Yeah, right. So he's an incredible talent. It's a shame that he didn't get more recognition than he
I
does.
mean, it's not too late for him to get that type of recognition. I mean, he's only 35. I
Right.
mean, yeah, his stat line may say that he's 34, 7, and 1, but won no contest. But still, though, it's just crazy that in this fight that he didn't really. Well, he did show his submission prowess. I think there was like a couple of moments in that fight where Koike would have almost finished Suzuki on the ground, but those 29
The
submissions.
triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I will say this: Suzuki did a good
Yeah.
job of replacing guard. There were a number of times where he got passed, to the side, or and he was able to replace guard after a period of time. He did a real good job of that.
Mm-hmm. And now let's just go ahead and think about this for a second. If the Suzuki Kleber rematch doesn't happen, well, it probably won't happen for a while, let's be real. Would you say that the winner of a fight between Razabali Shadulaev versus Karshiga Doubtbeck would be the next challenger for Kleber?
Um, are they the same weight?
Yeah,
Yeah,
same. Doubtbeck defeated Rin Yaman Sukiyama
yeah.
earlier on in the card, and Razabali Shaidulaev just dominated Yuta Kubo with the world and Kubo's ex-wife watching.
hmm Um, it'd be an interesting fight. Stylistically. You know, because of his wrestling, but again, even if you try to keep the fight standing,
Mm-hmm.
he's gonna have to deal with the Koiki pulling guard. But unless he can't grab him, if he can avoid the clinch, um, maybe it would be a little bit more. It could be more one-sided in Shadowlive's favor, but it would be an interesting fight from a contrast style. And I always look at fights that way. I don't look at, okay, this guy's going to win and this guy's going to lose. It's how can both guys win?
I mean, are you sure about that? Because I think that if Kleber were to face off against Karshiga, Karshiga would probably be the main one with the advantages, especially because of the amount of knockout power he has. While if Razabali faces off against Kleber, it'd be even game, but even still, anybody could pull a submission in that fight.
Yeah, maybe, but I feel like again, because of his long body, he's unique in that regard.
I
Going
understand.
against guys in the gym that are long like that is it's a nightmare, man. If they're good, and yeah, that's what I said. I think he's the best submission guy in MMA at the moment, and
Yeah,
his record shows that.
yeah, at the moment. But unfortunately, because of all the casual fans just basically turning anything away that isn't, soulless, locked up in the apex, Kleber's not really getting that much attention from. I mean, Kleber's not really getting that much attention from the global MMA sphere, which pretty much plays Ryzen's role in not getting that much attention from the global fight fan, anyways.
Right, but I think that they're content to fight there. Suzanne, Kleber, they both could fight elsewhere, but they might be content to be there because of the rules, like I said before.
Mm-hmm.
It's in their best interest to fight in those rules. Um, to fight elsewhere where they couldn't use the up kicks, the kicks like that, it would be taking a huge weapon away from them.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Now let's go ahead and go down the second title fight of the night, and that was Kyoji Horiguchi. I mean, he pretty much had Quasimodo Zulu, Shaka Zulu, King Shaka, so to speak, up on the ropes. But Zulu at least tried his damnedest to make this fight worth watching. And yeah, Horiguchi retained his flyweight title, but I think Zulu probably might get a call back, right?
Right. I mean, he held his own against him, but Horiguchi was better, obviously.
Mm-hmm. And I
Yeah, he
mean,
had him in a little bit of trouble at one point, also. So yeah,
mm-hmm.
I think definitely Ryzen would be interested in bringing him back because he performed well.
Oh yeah. And I mean, if anything, they would probably take a look at some of the other guys that Zulu trains with out of South Africa. I mean, yeah, this ain't Dylan West or this ain't Boyd Allen we're talking about, and those were the other two guys who have been perennial losers in Rising out of the Republic of South Africa. But still, though, when you think about the drastic change from Zulu in that first fight with Joe Arai when he just knocked the homeboy out to this fight, I mean, I think we really got to see Zulu fight an even fight, so to speak.
Right.
And as far as Horiguchi goes, we can basically talk all day about how he should be going back to the UFC, how he's the only viable opponent to face off against Alexandre Pantoja. But if you look at, what should be next for him, I mean, I don't know because I enjoy seeing Jose Shorty Torres work. I mean, I enjoyed seeing what he's done from the amateur days all the way up to his UFC run where he made Jarrett Brooks pile drive himself. But still, though, after that fight he had with Makoto Shinryu Takahashi, how far down the totem pole do you think he is at getting a shot at Horiguchi?
Well, it's hard to say because we're not the promoters, and we don't know exactly what the fans want or what the promoters even want,
Mm-hmm.
especially. Um, Sometimes if you don't look good, that might actually help you get a title shot more than if you do. You know, at times because the promoter might be looking to get a guy a good win. So
Oh yeah, of
it could
course.
go either way, really.
That and the thing is, you got a whole bunch of other flyweight prospects. I mean, like Tony Laramie, and I think Joe Arai still is in the picture despite the knockout loss to Zulu. And then you got, I think, a few others. that are definitely looking to go after Horiguchi, especially John Dodson. I mean, come to think of it, it would definitely make sense now for a Dotson Horiguchi fight to happen. It's just that Dotson needs at least one more win under Ryzen's rule set, and maybe one more good performance under BKFC to even be noted as a top contender.
I don't know if he could go with Horiguchi, but Horiguchi would have to raise his game a little bit. That's the other thing, when you don't have a fight that you kind of had the result that you wanted. I don't think Horiguchi came out of that fight satisfied with his performance necessarily. Um, I think his next fight he would do a lot better because of that.
I mean, let's just say if his next fight is his last fight, no Grand Prix, no potential call up to the UFC, would you basically say that Kyoji Horiguchi might potentially hang the gloves up soon?
Again, those are the kind of things that are hard to know unless you're in the gym with him or someone who knows him personally. He's fought a lot of times. He has a ton of experience. He's a guy who he could keep fighting if he wanted to. It's not like it doesn't have the ability. He does have it, but it's just, does he want to continue doing it or not? Or does he even need to continue doing it?
I mean, the only way he would want to continue doing it is for the sake of his legacy. That's all that be. Other than that, he's not really going to want to chase after money. He's not going to really want to chase after clout or after fame and fortune because he's already had that. He just doesn't have the ego to, show for it. And I think that's what a lot of casual fans probably would want out of somebody like Horiguchi.
Yeah. Japan's not cheap though, so.
You think?
Yeah, you could say that someone may not chase money, but money can go fast in Japan.
Of course it does.
Even if you made a lot of it, it can still go quickly. Although he seems a little more grounded than some of the other guys that were popular in Japan and maybe weren't as grounded as he was when it comes to spending money and stuff like that. He doesn't seem very flamboyant.
I mean, come to think of it, he grew up idolizing Kid Yamamoto and now he's training out of American Top Team. And obviously, he's managed to keep himself humble even in situations where, things aren't humble.
Right.
But still, though, hopefully, whatever's next for the flyweight division, it would mean a lot for potential contenders for Kyoji down the line, if not potential fights for Kyoji down the line. And now let's go ahead and go down and talk about the lightweight contest. And that was, it was pretty much deemed a no contest as far as, competitiveness goes. Roberto Satoshi de Souza made former featherweight champion Vugar Karmal tap out. 4 minutes, 45 seconds, round one. I mean, damn. His fourth title defense. The fourth title defense for Roberto Satoshi de Souza. And if you add up the amount of submissions that Roberto has, most of his 18 wins are by way of submission. I think 11 wins of those, 11 of his wins are by way of submission. Let's just face it. I keep saying that Ryzen has a problem with attracting competitors at 155, 170 pounds, all the way up to heavyweight or open weight in some cases. Do you think it's about time for De Souza to potentially move up to 170 and make that division worthwhile? Or, can he at least make some more interesting fights at 157 pounds, 71 kilos?
Yeah, he could move up to challenge himself, but there's something to be said for being a guy who can defend the title for a long time also. So
And I mean, again, is like I said, there's not really that many fighters. I mean, especially at welterweight and rising, and especially at middleweight, that would be able to drop down like 20, 25 pounds just to face him.
He could, he could rematch someone that beat him, like maybe AJ McKee or.
I mean, are you sure? Because those Bellator PFL contracts are looking really suspicious.
Right, but I'm just saying if they want to bring somebody in, which they've done before to fight him,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they could bring somebody in to fight him, and that would give them another avenue of people to face and a motivation to face someone that beat him. So
I mean, yeah, have him face off against AJ McKee or have him face off against Patricky Pitbull. But again, I mean, those PFL contracts are just really suspicious to me when it comes down to letting their guys fight wherever.
right.
I mean, I just think that whoever Roberto faces off against next, Ryzen would definitely have to put a lot of backing behind the division.
And Don Davis was at the Ryzen.
Oh my God, was he?
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably just looking for another fucking investment scam like he has been doing over the last few years with the PFL. But still, though, when it comes down to, you know, potential, I mean, I know that Roberto's been saying, you know, I don't want to go to the UFC. I want to keep building Rising. But do you think that at some point he's not really going to have much of a choice?
Isn't that what they said? Don Davis came down the ramp. I didn't see that part because I was kind of going to fight, but I think I saw um
Oh my God.
Jay Wolf say that.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know where Jay Wolf gets that shit from. I mean, basically, he's saying that Don Davis is trying to lead the new world of fighting or something. I don't know. Point of the matter is, dude just treats MMA like it's like it's pawns on a damn chessboard. I mean, like I really wouldn't trust him as much as I can throw him, as much as I can talk shit about him. But still, though, when it comes down to Roberto, potential opportunities be damned. There's gonna come a time where he's gonna have to move up and face better competition elsewhere. I mean, if anything, have some of that better competition come out and face him.
Right. I think he could fight in the UFC successfully because he has a different skill set than Koike. He doesn't necessarily have to fight off his back. He's well rounded. He can fight everywhere. I think Kleber has to fight in Ryzen because the rules are set for him perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Souza could venture out elsewhere if that's what he wanted to do.
I mean, yeah, he basically said, and I think this was from an MMAfighting.com article from Guilherme Cruz that basically said Souza only wants to fight in the UFC if he gets the same, I wouldn't say preferential treatment as Kyle Sakura, but if he basically gets put right into lightweight type contendership from the get go.
I mean, be interested to see. He's got a very high level of skill. He is older though; he's 35. So same with Kleber. Their window's closing a little bit.
I mean, yeah, it's basically they're both in now or never mode,
Well, I don't think Kleber has to go anywhere. Like I said, I think he should stay where he's at. The rules are perfect for him, but Souza has a little bit more leeway because of his skill set.
Of course. Well, skipping over the one woman's fight, which was a total one-sided train wreck. Let's be real. Yuki Motoya defeated Kiyoma Akimoto, humbling the young master who's got a lot to learn. I mean, again, here's another guy in Yuki Motoya, 35 years young. He's basically getting he's gonna get the opportunity now to fight against Naoki Inoue to become to finally become what am I trying to say? To finally become a champion in Rising. But let's just face it, this man has fought on and off for the promotion over the last decade. Do you think that 2025 is finally going to be the year where Yuki Motoya becomes Rising champion?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard. Like I said, I know it's hard to say in a lot of the questions that you're asking because I don't really someone who predict about fights necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Anybody can win, especially in MMA.
Yep.
Especially with the punches or the kick, especially the punches because of small gloves.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, could win? Sure. It's more who can execute.
Mm-hmm. Understood. And when it comes,
Unless it's an elite wrestler. If it's an elite wrestler, I would always say, okay, this guy's going to walk over him because wrestling is very reliable.
yeah, of course, and you got good grappling skills, you're definitely gonna have that type of advantage.
Yeah.
But still, though, when it comes down to Kiyoma Akimoto, 7-1, 18 years old, world is his oyster. Who's to say that this man, this young man, so to speak, won't become a champion down the line? You know,
Oh, as a young fighter, yeah, I mean, the odds are on his side.
I mean, of course.
It's just would it happen this year, next year? Do they get the experience they need, or can they bypass that and not need the experience and win at a very young age? It's
Mm,
just
I mean, if anything, I'm not trying to pair losers with winners here. I mean, I think a fight between him and Ryuya Fukuda would be a bit of a mismatch as well, but at least it would be more of an entertaining affair for Akimoto than the Montoya fight was for him.
yeah. I mean, put him against somebody who had a good performance and see what he does.
Mm-hmm.
You want to bring him up,
Yeah. I mean,
but not against someone who got run over. Just someone who had a good performance and see what he does with that. Yeah.
mm-hmm. And I mean, if you think about it, don't you kind of think that JMMA needs fresher? I mean, I wouldn't say younger competitors, but more so fresher competitors.
In my time, when I was living there, Shuto was the one that was producing the best Japanese fighters
Mm-hmm.
by a large margin, in my opinion. But Pride did have some of theirs that weren't in Shuto, like Sakuraba and some of those. But it's more like are the Shuto, especially, but some of those other leagues as well. What are they producing?
Mm-hmm.
And Shuto can be difficult about letting guys go to Ryzen too, so or letting guys go anywhere.
Hmm. I mean, what you think they a little bit too isolated?
Well, I think the fighters have loyalty to Shuto as well. Um, it took a long time for a lot of those guys to go into Pride, like Sakurai and Gomi and Kawajiri. They were very loyal to Shuto for a very long time before. They probably could have made that move sooner, but once they had the Bushido show and there were lighter weights, it made sense.
Of course, of course. Now let's
It's
go.
hard to comment on JMA MMA because, like I told you offline, it doesn't seem like Ryzen's goal is to, unless they're doing something where they're playing a long game. It doesn't seem like their goal is to get back to where Pride was for whatever reason. They
Well,
let they let guys go. They're not necessarily hell bent on keeping their stars, and you have to do that in order to get where they would want to go if they want to be as big as Pride. You can't let Asakura leave. You can't let Horiguchi leave. You can't let any of those guys leave. The
because
most talented guys got to stay in house.
because now when you think about it, they got a show coming up in Saga in March. They got this Korea show, which is definitely going to prove their international medal mid-May, and they got the Tokyo Dome with Mikuru Asakura versus Ren
Right.
Hiromoto rematch in front of hopefully 50,000 people at the end of May.
I know they're calling it the match too, but to me, it's like, come on, the match was. That's not even close to what the match was. Those two guys were at the height of their powers. Takeru and Finch. Yeah, so that is totally different. You had two guys that people wanted to see fight for a long, long time.
Yeah, and you're probably saying that, and CJ, Charles Jewett is saying they didn't have the power to keep the Asakuras.
Right, I get that, but I'm just saying, thinking from my perspective, what would it take to get back to where you want to go? It'd take keeping those fighters around, and if they can't do that, they'll never get back to where they want to be.
But still, though, you probably seen and heard about the announcement already. Ryzen is going to have a show at the Tokyo Dome again for only the second time in the last 4 years. They're going to have Mikuru Asakura versus Ren Hiromoto rematch in front of hopefully 50,000 people. But you're saying that it's not going to be bigger than Tenshin Nasukawa versus Takaru Sagawa.
No, it won't be bigger. No, I still think that a lot of people will watch it, of course, but not bigger than that fight was. For the reason that I said, those people were waiting to see those two guys fight for a long time and never got the fight. They never got it. And finally, they got their bite at the apple, so to speak. And I think that's why it was as big as it was.
I mean, yeah.
And those guys were stars, too. Big stars, so yeah.
Of course, but in this particular fight, I mean, I can basically say I barely see the interest behind it, because the first fight, it was very one-sided. Hiromoto just basically knocked out Mikuru and put his ass out of commission for a little bit. And CJ is saying it won't be bigger, but it'll easily sell out the Tokyo Dome.
The max setup, you think? The max capacity?
I mean, what, 63,000?
Or do you think it'll be one of the smaller setups? Which capacity does it sell out?
It will probably sell, from the looks of how this match will probably play out, I would say it'll sell out smaller capacity easily, and then it'll expand to like mid 30,000. But
because I think they have 3 setups. Let me look at I'm pretty sure they do.
But to be honest, I think I have a better chance of. I think there's going to probably be a better chance of Ryan Garcia taking on Rukia Ampo than this particular fight selling out completely. And they're saying, Sogu Kaku, CJ, Charles Jewett is saying their first fight sold out Saitama Super Arena almost instantly for Super Rising 3 last summer.
Yeah. I think the max setup for Tokyo Dome's 55K. So, yeah, maybe they can get there, yeah. I think it'd be great if they did. What my head is thinking is not necessarily about the fight, but what else would they pull out there? When they got the eyeballs on them, what else are they going to pull out? That's what I would.
Yeah, because, every good fight has to have a strong undercard, especially
or a surprise, That's more like what I was thinking about.
And come to think of it, and Charles Stewart is saying that's a good question, LOL. But still, though, when you seen the first part of the card. The Ryzen Bangaichi part of the card. The 7 fight series between Team Breaking Down, Mikuru, and Team Black Rose, Hiramoto. What were your overall thoughts about this?
I'd have to go back and look at the card. Yeah, I know you kind of have the storyline there, which is good. I think as far as when you're building up another fight to kind of play off of that. But it's interesting. You could have some other team type concepts in the future that might be interesting. But will they draw the same kind of we have an interest between two guys? But there are some interesting team matchups you could do. It's an interesting concept. We've seen it already in the U.S., where they did teams and things like that. So
Oh my God! Don't even get me
yeah,
started. That whole
not
team.
that they did it that way, but what I'm just
Uh,
saying, where one guy's leading, the other guy's leading, kind of like a tough concept. These two guys are gonna fight, but right now they're leading groups of guys that are fighting each other.
I mean, come to think, dude, you grew as a fight fan probably during the era of the International Fight League.
I
So,
did see it. Yeah, yeah, of course.
so you probably remember how shitty that was.
Uh They had some good fighters and they had some
Mhm.
interesting fights. But what I think is they thought they were going to sell a lot of merchandise because they thought people would get behind. You know how the NBA or the NFL, the teams, the fans get behind the city, right? Okay, we're going to buy
Yeah.
this jersey, that jersey, and
Mm.
that never materialized. I think they thought that would, and it never really did. Because Miguel, who does a show with me, he has a friend who bought all of Ed Tyson is his name, and he bought everything that was remaining in IFL once it closed. He bought all of it. He's
Let me
got
guess.
he's got all their paperwork. He's got everything.
Let me guess. He bought it all off a la carte, super liquidation, 99% off.
Wow, I don't know how much he paid for it, but he bought their entire library. He owns
Wow.
everything that was associated with IFL, and he's got paperwork, contract stuff, all kinds of things, investment. They had some pretty big investors. You know,
Yeah. They
maybe not by today's standard, but they had some millions backing them. And if you watched, I think it was my last episode, Miguel talked about that, specifically about some of those numbers. I might bring Ed on and let him kind of talk about it because Ed's a collector. That's the main reason he bought it. He's a big time MMA collector, and
come to think of it, I wouldn't mind talking to him myself
yeah
now that
he's
I realize it.
yeah he's got a pretty awesome collection of stuff. And
I mean, you should ask him if he has, footage of this old BET show called The Iron Ring, which was black fighters in mixed martial arts.
right, yeah, we put some because Miguel did a number of shows with Ed, where they went over some of the things that he has,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, he's got some cool stuff for sure.
Yeah, and obviously Charles Jewett has his favorite fighter, Big Ben Rothwell, baby.
Yeah, he was in the IFL. Yep.
Oh yeah, he was not only in the IFL, he was the heavyweight champion of
Right,
it.
right, right. Hmm.
But still, though, now that we basically talked about this team format, even for a little bit, I mean, what would you say now that you at least watched a little bit of the card? I mean, what would you say was probably your best fight of the rest of the card that you watched?
Mm, hmm. It's hard to say. I'd have to go back and
I
look
mean,
at the names here.
take your time. Again, the show.
In a way, I don't know if you'd say best, but I actually enjoyed watching uh Ampo versus Kariman.
Mm-hmm.
Although I thought Kariman's antics were silly, and
Uh,
but the fans enjoyed it. But I thought Ampo started to get more confident as the fight went on. Trading more.
yeah,
Um, I would have liked to see. I felt like I wanted to see more of the fight when it was over because it felt like they were starting to trade a little bit more.
it
And
was Ultimately, because of the spinning back fist that both fighters tried to pull,
Right, right.
but both fighters connected in pulling.
But I think at first, Ampo was he was avoiding because of the size difference. I think he was real
Hmm.
hesitant, but he started to get more confident as the fight went on, and it would have been interesting to see them kind of trade more, which they were starting to do when the fight ended.
In a way, I'm just glad that for Ampo, he at least got to have fun in that particular fight, even though, again, it got a little chaotic by the end of round five, or really into round six, when they were just spamming spinning back fist, knowing that they were illegal in Western boxing rules. So, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah, it was, but that's Japan for you. That's
hmm. And I mean, again, to be honest, like I said, it probably would have been a lot more crazier if Ampo would have faced off against Ryan Garcia. And then he would have had to face, hefty fines just for even doing that type of stuff.
But those are the kind of things that Rising could do that are interesting. That's why I'm saying I want to see what else are they going to pull out at Tokyo Dome, or what surprise will they pull out if it's not an actual fight that is on the card that people aren't expecting. What future surprise are they going to have? Because that's the best time to do it when you're
Hmm.
in the Tokyo Dome. So that's really what I'm anticipating. Having Garcia fight Ampo, I think would have been great for them had they really went at it. If it was just some kind of silly exhibition, I don't know. But if they had really tried to beat each other, that could have been interesting for
Yeah.
the fans to see. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Well, I think that my best fights of the rest of the card, I mean, let's just get this out the way. The worst fight that I've seen on that card was Koji Takeda versus Suguru Ni. I mean, I just,
Yeah, neither guy really
eh.
had an advantage or had a moment um, where they hurt each other.
Well, except for
Yeah.
the final round. Well, yeah, except for the final round where Suguru made, in the words of Michael Schiavello, Koji Takeda take a knee.
Right.
I mean,
When you need him in the groin, you mean?
yep.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Neither fighter was in danger of being beaten or finished or anything like that. And sometimes fights go like that, where neither guy really makes any real progress, you
Mm,
know. But it does happen, and it's hard to score a fight like that, and it's hard to watch a fight like that. But sometimes two guys cancel each other out to that degree.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But still, the fights that I basically enjoyed off of this fight card, at least from the rest of it, were concerned. And these were basically my three that I didn't know have, that type of staying power. The amateur Koshien High School final between Sano Yokouchi and Kenshin Saito. I think Sano, who was all of 16 years of, no, who was all of 18 years of age. I mean, let's just face it, he's just as old as Kiyoma Akimoto, but he's just got a bright future ahead, and he's got an even big future because of that rising contract he now has.
Right. Um, and it's good for them to bring in guys that are really young like that to try and get the audience used to them. We got to talk about Sakuraba's son too. We haven't even
Mm,
talked about that yet.
you know what? That's the second fight
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
was interested in. Taisei Sakuraba knocking out Yusuke Yachi in 26 seconds, doing something that Kazushi barely, if ever, did knock anybody out.
yeah. I'd like to see. I mean, how much of Pride did you watch back in the day? Or
Oh, unfortunately, sadly for me, I came up right around the time Pride FC was ending, but I
okay,
did manage to catch all the Spike TV Best of Pride, no, the Spike TV and FS1 Best of Pride episodes. So that was pretty much my education of getting into the sport before 2011 when I saw my first JMMA show through HDNet.
All right. Trying to think of. It'd be interesting to have somebody on who was around at those times and was, maybe even live or you see him come out, same
Mhm.
music as his father, same look, as far as but maybe not as look more thinly built. Um, but it'll be interesting to see what they do with him because obviously his dad was, yeah, he was the biggest for them for Pride.
Oh yeah,
And
sure.
it'll be interesting to see what direction they go or how they try to use him because that's when I'm thinking big picture. Who are guys who can help that? He could definitely help that.
Mhm.
Bringing Japan MMA um, for bigger fights. If he had a lot of success, um, he'd have a lot of people watching, and that's what I talk about. I would like to see Japan get back. Those are the kind of people that could maybe have a role in that.
Oh yeah, of course. And I mean,
And him beating Yachi, I mean, Yachi at one time was a really, really
I
tough fighter. He's kind of taken a step back, obviously, but
don't want to say that
and
he.
I think that Andrew Benjamin thought Yachi was going to run over.
Oh my
I
god.
say it because of the experience.
I mean, even I didn't think that Yachi would win this fight. I mean, even I didn't think that Saki was gonna win this fight at first. But still, though, I mean, Andrew, as much as I respect him, let's be real, I didn't think that even he knew what this fight was going to be capable of. I mean, let's face it, Taisei got something that his dad only displayed in like 4 fights throughout his career, punching power. And
Right.
basically the knock on Kazushi because Kazushi's game, just like Taisei's game, is more entrenched in the submission game. You know?
And he looks, like I said, he looks a lot different than his dad. Sakuraba, when he was coming up and beating Gracie's and beating other people, he looked pretty physical actually. It was only later in his career when his body kind of broke down and stuff, but he looked pretty athletic and strong. When
Uh,
he's fighting the Gracie's stuff. Taisei kind of looks like he doesn't even look like a fighter.
and it was definitely
Yeah.
sad for Kazushi to go out on that 5 fight losing streak, but still, though, I think that for for Taisei Sakuraba, it's going to probably lead to more showcase fights. I mean, I think that there might be some continuation of the Sakuraba Gracie feud. I mean, I don't know if Kron Gracie is out of a UFC contract already, but still, though, who knows? Maybe we might see more Sakuraba Gracie fights down the line if there are more Gracies to inherit the lineage.
Now, what was he doing before MMA? Did he do a lot of grappling in Japan or? I don't watch the competitions like I used to.
Actually, he was, but from what I read from the great LJ, 4th Avenue 520 com- Combat Cat for the Uninhibited, go on her site, the-fighter.net. You'll definitely get a feel for what I'm talking about. Taisei, was basically working a desk job before getting the kick back into fighting.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, he looks like it in a way. He looks like someone you would expect to see.
I mean, yeah, he
Yeah,
basically had no interest in fighting before getting that bug to get back in because of his dad's promotion, Quintet.
right. How
Hmm.
much competition are you doing quintet?
Let's see here. I mean, from what I'm looking at, it doesn't show much. I mean, yeah, he competed in team competitions, but that was just the gist of it. I mean, he also competed in amateur kickboxing, and I think he had one showcase bout in quintet, but that was just about it.
Hmm. Yeah, so he's not even a decorated competitor, really.
Yeah, but again, dude's 26. Give him time. He'll grow.
That's the thing, though. 26 is still, you know,
Not too young, but
yeah,
then
that'll go by fast.
old.
If he was 21 or something, I feel, but still, they can still get a lot out of him for sure.
Mhm. And Charles Stewart again saying he beat that guy with a questionable past. I think I know who you're talking about, CJ. You're talking about the judo Olympian who had some outstanding legal issues, right? I
Who
mean,
is that?
let me go ahead and do a little quick Google search while we're doing this because, you know, again, I know exactly who you're talking about, CJ, but the name just doesn't roll off the tongue for me. Possibly, CJ says. But still, though, it is kind of crazy to think about it now because, I mean, again, when it comes down to Saku's career, the only place she has to go is at least up, so to speak.
Right.
And you know what? Speaking of looking up, I mean, the third fight that I was interested in definitely wasn't on my bucket list to give a shit about before going into this card. How familiar are you with Ed Polo King?
Yeah, I thought that he was cool to watch too, because of his height and
I mean, yeah.
using the knees. That's kind of what you expect from somebody who's got his kind of height and range.
I mean, yeah. Ed Polo King, 6'8".
Yep.
Oh, let's just say he's 6'8". He's 6 feet 8 inches tall. Weighs in at about a good 240, 250. I mean, actually, no. Weighed in at 260 prior to this damn fight. I mean, he says he is a fan of Derek the Black Beast Lewis. I think that the knockout he had of lovable loser Taka Kenshin was definitely worthy of Black Beast sighting, so to speak.
Like, how many times did you see Sammy Schilt fight?
I think I've seen Semi Show fight a few times.
Right. So that's kind of, similar. Sammy Schilt, I think 6'11", and
I mean, is Stefan Struve similar?
well, Stroop didn't have Schilt's skill level, not even close. You
Uh,
know, and
okay.
Schilt, when in his prime, if you go look at his fight record, man, yeah, he's got a ton of wins. There was a time when he was running over all kinds of people,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, in K1, and yeah, he was a pretty dominant fighter,
In
and
K1 and Pride and Pancrase, right?
right, K1 and Pancrase, yeah, especially, and he was difficult to deal with, and I think you saw some of that with Ed Polo as well. You're fighting a guy who's shorter, and it's called a height and reach advantage for a reason. Advantage, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where you saw that.
But yeah, when it came down to that fight that Ed Polo had against Taka Kenshin and Saku, I mean, no, it actually, Charles is saying, no way he was thicker, wasn't he? No, he was way thicker, wasn't he? I mean, shit, Taka Kenshin was thicker. This dude, Ed Polo, who was Nigerian and Korean, was just built like a, I mean, I wouldn't say a brick shit house. I mean, it's like Lee Emery said in Full Metal Jacket, I didn't know they stacked shit that high. But still, though, Andrew is now chiming in and saying, Todd, How do you feel about Rising Fighters openly saying they want to go to the UFC? You never heard Pride Fighter say, after this Grand Prix, I'm going to the UFC. King in the post fight comment said that he wants to fight in the UFC.
Oh, I hate it. I hate it. Not because of them, but what I mean, as a person, me, and I talked about this at the beginning. When I look at Ryzen, I'm thinking, how can they get back to the Pride level,
Mm-hmm.
to where they're right up there competing with the UFC for the best fighters in the world, and where they have not just that, but also having cards where you have a number of good Japanese fighters against fighters from other regions. And to have guys saying they want to go to the UFC is completely contrary to that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a disappointing. And but Ryzen's letting it happen. So part of me feels like maybe they don't want to get back to where they were. I don't know,
Mm,
unless the Sakaki Bar is playing some long game stuff or like that, where he's waiting for the right moment, as it takes a little longer to build. But yeah, I don't like it.
yeah,
How does that help
I mean,
Japan MMA? And you would think that Japanese fighters would want to take pride in bringing that back, but they
yeah,
don't. For
they.
some reason, they don't.
I mean, if anything, now that that comment has been settled, I mean, Andrew, you're more than welcome to join the call if you want. But still, though, when it comes down to Ed Polo King saying that, and they flew Sean O'Malley just to say Happy New Year. I mean, to be honest, Andrew, like I said in my preview of this damn thing, they weren't going to just send them over there just to look pretty. I mean, they were just going. I mean, they were originally supposed to have them do commentary for this fight card, but I guess those plans kind of changed last minute at the insistence of the Garcia versus Ampo fight canceled. I mean, being canceled. But as far as Ed Polo King goes, dude's only had one fight in mixed martial arts. He got a lot of building blocks to stack up for his 6'8" frame to go. You know, I mean, not. I mean, this fight against Taka Kenshin was just a sample size of what we got. We need to see more out of him before he starts making assumptions about wanting to go to the octagon.
Yeah, it to me. It's just tiring. I don't even. I was watching Andrew's show, and he was talking about this guy could go to the UFC, that guy could go to the UFC, and
Uh,
I don't even want to discuss it. To me, it's not something worth discussing. And really, how many of them are going to have success? That's the other thing they should think about, because it's not really. They're
uh,
fighting under a rule set that's not the same.
exactly.
They're not fighting in front of their home fans. They're having to travel. Um,
Not only that, when it
yeah,
comes to not having to fight in front of their fans, they're fighting in front of some of the most hostile, most vicious, most ruthless fan bases there is. And I'm not just talking about the assholes that are basically making up combat sports fandom here in this country. I'm talking about Brazil. I'm talking about Poland. I'm talking about, Australia, South Africa, all these places, you know?
and a lot of them, they don't have the skill set to fight in that. There's one, I think Nakamura, Rinya Nakamura, wrestler,
Mm-hmm.
great freestyle wrestler. That guy can fight in the UFC because he has the kind of skills to do that. But a lot of them, they don't have that kind of skill set. So to go to the UFC and fight there when it's not really an environment that's to their strength, it's not a good idea. Nakamura makes sense. He's a great wrestler,
Mm-hmm.
and he can use his skills to in a better environment for wrestlers.
And
The cage is a wrestler's game, man.
and Andrew is saying that Rise's precedent where they had publicly said we want for Kai Asakura to join the UFC.
Yeah, it's to me it's lame, but they're the promoters, they're the ones that are putting up the money. So if that's what they want to do, I mean, who am I to tell them what to do? I
And,
just don't like it.
and also not doing trade like what ONE FC and UFC did for Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson and Ben Askren.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if a trade would have happened. I mean, we all know when it came down to that Ben Askren Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson trade, it definitely benefited ONE FC because they were getting a legend that was, I guess, still in his prime in the case of Mighty Mouse. And the UFC got damaged goods in Ben Askren. Literal damaged goods, as was proven in not only the knockout loss to Jorge Masvidal, but the ass whooping he would suffer to Jake Paul. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, if a UFC trade were to happen, who would it really benefit?
I just don't see why Japanese fighters. I understand maybe it's financial. I don't know what they're getting paid in Ryzen, but you gotta think out what's the benefit, and you would think that the Japanese athletes would want to play a part in MMA in Japan rising to another level again, instead of running off to the UFC to compete.
Oh yeah, of course. And Andrew is saying, "Trust me, Todd. I don't like it either, but I'm on your side."
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't? Who was around from those days?
I see. I mean, other than that, because
I will say this: Ryzen still puts on a better show than the UFC.
oh
Yeah,
most definitely.
the production value, the crowd. Yeah, it's light years better than the UFC events. UFC is I'd say it's a package. You're going to get the same package whatever city they're in. They have a package. They play the same music at every show.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the same. So they just rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Go to the next town, rinse, repeat. And they don't. Well, they did that one show in the Sphere, but other than that, they don't really have any kind of creativity. It's just let's put out the same event over and over, and there'll be different fighters in it, but it's the same package. Kind of like Vegas. They're in Vegas. If you go see whatever entertainer you pick, any night that you go see that person, you're going to see the same show you saw before, probably. And that's kind of how the UFC is.
That's a reason why they call it a residency. You get the same fucking performance over and over.
Exactly. So, yeah, UFC does it. It's just a fight. But Ryzen has creativity. And that's something that makes Japan MMA special.
And you know what? Muchísimas gracias to Barea La Pierna for basically putting this out there. Two Ryzen's, I think, 6 fights this past year cracked the top 5 list for the most attended MMA events of the year.
Right.
Super Ryzen 3, and it was Ryzen 49 that happened over the last 6 months or so. I mean, I talked to Michael Schiavello about this, and yeah, he definitely was excited about the fact that he got to commentate Ryzen over the last 6 months, and being a part of those 2 events for him, I'm pretty sure he was definitely on cloud 9, 10, and 11 when it came down to those shows.
Yeah, they're drawing bigger crowds than the UFC.
Mm-hmm. I mean, granted, the other 2 events outside of one UFC event in Mexico City, and I'm looking at this right now, Super Ryzen 3, 48,117, this according to the post from Barele La Pierna. That's good enough for second Super Ryzen 3, and Ryzen 49 / Ryzen Decade managed to get 23,000 people in the seats at the Saitama Super Arena. That was about 2,000 people better than the UFC's effort in Mexico City with Moreno versus Royval, and the other 2 events were Octagon MMA events in Europe, but still though, after not getting noticed by the World MMA Awards, which is a crock of shit because it's just the UFC awards. But still, though, after not getting noticed for their production quality, their work, putting on shows like Rising 49, I think it's about damn time they start getting noticed. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And the American fans, they don't know. They're not watching it. It doesn't come on at the right time for them to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, they're gonna as their popularity at this point now, they can probably have a number of shows like in 2025. They'll probably have more than 5 that would outdraw any UFC event. UFC couldn't even dream of doing a show like The Match or Yoyogi Stadium 2002, which I was at, the
Mm-hmm.
outdoor event.
Yeah, 93,000
Um,
for
yeah, UFC
Shockwave
could
Dynamite.
never sniff an event like that in their wildest dreams,
I mean,
and never will.
exactly. But they can damn sure try.
No, they can't. That's why they don't try, because they can't.
I mean, Dana White basically gets pissy at the point of trying to do stadium shows.
Well, there's a lot of things that go into that, and you have to worry about the weather and all those kind of things. I mean, the stars aligned on
Yeah, but I'm
for the
not.
93,000. The stars really aligned. They did it in the summer. It was pretty hot, I recall.
Yeah,
And
but I'm not doing outdoor stadium shows. I know you had the honor, the privilege of going to probably the greatest outdoor fight show of all time with Pride Shockwave slash K1 Dynamite back in '02. But I'm
it'll
talking.
always be dynamite for me.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing was about the stars aligning. Japan had the World Cup there for the first time.
Oh yeah,
So,
and they basically
then
wanted to treat it like it was the Olympics of MMA.
exactly. So the first night I got there, I remember Japan beat Russia in the World Cup. And yeah, everywhere you went, there was just blue uniforms everywhere. Everyone was wearing. And so K1 Pride, they were able to capitalize on that and have their own summer World Cup event. And
Yep,
Ishii even said that at the beginning when he was in the ring. Koktogi World Cup.
yep.
So there were a lot of stars that aligned perfectly at that time.
Non-related to fight sports, but my only memories of the 2002 World Cup were basically hearing about the U.S. winning. I mean, the U.S. making it to the round of 8 on like ESPN or Sports Center, and then when I was wanting to watch a game early that morning, I think it was around the time when my siblings and my cousins were up and they were causing so much of a commotion that my father forced us all to go to sleep. So yeah, I wasn't able to watch the rest of the World Cup because of that. But still, if I would have been staying up to, if my little 9-year-old ass would have stayed up to watch, something like Pride Shockwave or K1 Dynamite back then, I would have definitely been more entrenched in fight sports, way more than what I know now, so to speak.
Uh-huh.
But still, though, for these shows that have been garnering so much attention for Rising, I mean, they were only 2 of the last 6 that Rising has done over the course of this year. I think that 2025 should be, go big or go home for Rising.
Yeah, and these guys saying they want to go to the UFC. What, you want to go fight in front of 20,000 people instead of 40,
No, not
50?
20,000 people. Do you want to go fight in front of
Yeah.
a Apex?
Yeah, or yeah, you want to fight in front of the Apex where there's just a few thousand people at best, a few hundred maybe. Why?
I mean, because they basically have some twisted mindsets.
Yeah, and their manager should probably put in their ear. You know.
Yeah, of course. But still, though, like I said, for this year, for Rising in 2025, there's a lot of things I can basically say I mean, I can basically say for certain that I won't really explain in detail. I'll definitely be doing a year end preview, hopefully within the next month or so, because the next Ryzen event will not happen until, and if I am looking at this correctly, if we're in January now, if we're barely 1 week into January of 2025 for the new year, Ryzen won't have another event booked at least for another 2 months. So I'm definitely hoping to do looking at this, Ryzen 50, March 31st, Anabuki Arena Kagawa, Takamatsu Kagawa, Japan. But still, though, point of the matter is, I'm hoping to do at least a year-end preview sometime between Valentine's Day and the last weekend of February. Because there ain't much on television-wise. But still, though, if Ryzen doesn't do at least half of what they've done this past year, 2024, especially with what happened with Ryzen Decade, Ryzen 49, would you say that 2025 for Ryzen is a disappointment?
Well, I think they will do, what your expectations are. It's just how big do they want to do it? I the attendance is there, so I don't think that's going to go backwards.
As production.
Yeah. I don't think those things are going to go backwards.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're still going to have events of high caliber with the greatest production known to man. You're still going to have crazy screaming lady Lenny Hart, shrilling her lungs out, so to speak. You're still going to have some of the best fights that anybody can buy unless they get a subscription to Ryzen.tv. But still, though, for me, I just hope they don't do anything stupid that could cause them to, you know, fuck up years of goodwill that they've done over the last decade in bringing JMM, in trying to bring JMA back, and then ruining it all in one fell swoop.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't think you have to worry about ruining it. It's just, do they want to bring it back? That's the question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And hopefully, in their mindset, if they do, well, actually, hopefully, in their mindset, they definitely will be able to bring it back tenfold, and hopefully, it'll be for the better. Now, considering the fact that we're damn near 80 minutes into this extended conversation, this is probably the shortest I've done without Jay Wolf trying to run it all over. But still, though, you want to go ahead and put over where people can find you and listen to you and, how to interact with you. I'll go ahead and put out the banner just in case, but still, though, go ahead and put yourself over.
You do a good job with that stuff. I don't, my lives, I'm not even good at putting messages on. But yeah, like you put down there, I'm really not on Twitter a whole lot these days, but you can find me there if you want to discuss something. It's Todd Atkins, my name, MMA.
Is it because of the fact that you basically are still getting heat one from that one story about?
No. It's just it's hard to keep. I find how many apps do you want to spread yourself thin on? If you're trying to build a YouTube channel, or you can only dedicate so much time to these different ones. If you're on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all these things, how much time can you dedicate to each of them? I do think Twitter's good for news, especially MMA news.
But there's so
But
many like people getting away from the bird out because of who's running it to the ground, you know?
But yeah, you can find me on Instagram at the_Todd_Atkins_show. So I put clips of my shows there. And YouTube's where I do the regular shows with Miguel Adorati. And Yeah, I have been starting to do some audio podcasts again. I took a break from again spreading yourself thin. It takes a lot of work to do audio stuff after you've done a YouTube video and all this other. It's only so many hours in the day, especially if you're working, and which I do. So yeah, but
Yeah, of course.
I do a show with Miguel Dorade. I think that's probably the most popular show I do, and Miguel's a longtime matchmaker, hook and shoot, Bodog, Euphoria. He did the first 6 or 7 ADCCs. Um, yeah, so he's been around the block, obviously, and me and him were both around on the internet circles back then when it was just kind of starting. And yeah, so I think Miguel does a good job of educating people. That's kind of the purpose of the show, and to kind of come up with some discussions that maybe people aren't having. Uh, but yeah, that's the most popular show that we do, the MMA Conspiracy Hour. And then I do some other interviews and some other theme shows here and there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, come think of it, I might need to. I mean, you might need to let me know how to contact him because I mean, you say that he used to be a part of Hook and Shoot. He owns a good chunk of the IFL
No,
library.
no, no. Ed Tyson is the one who owns the IFL stuff. Miguel was the matchmaker for Hook and Shoot. Yes.
Yeah, you might have to hook me up with a couple of. You might have to hook me up with those guys because I would definitely want to talk more with them about all this classic MMA that they have inherited or they have been a part of, especially considering the fact that Hook and Shoot hasn't been around in what, over a decade now.
Right. It was Miguel and Jeff Osborne who you may
Mm-hmm.
have seen in some of the early UFCs. They kind of tried him out
Oh
in
yeah,
the
I
booth,
definitely remember Jeff Osborne.
but he was kind of monotone, so I think it just didn't work as far as the TV aspect went.
Mm-hmm. But still, though, you definitely gonna have to hook me up with those guys so that you know I can try and communicate with them. I can at least try and get some words out of them. But
Yeah.
still, though, aside from that, you can check out Jay Wolf and whatever I mean, all that he's got on. Just remember, his spelling is a bit different on the Bird app than it is on Discord. And
Does Jay Wolf have his own Discord channel, or is he just mainly on the Ryzen one?
he is mainly on the Rising FF Fans Discord, which of course, I mean, I'm gonna have to do a better job of pre-doing these descriptions so that people can actually read them. Because if you looking at this right now, if you basically are seeing this banner and checking out the description, you'll know that the link to the Discord is not in the description of this podcast right now. So, if you want to go ahead and check that out, I'll definitely be doing a lot of editing and posts, so to speak, just to get that going. And also, if you want to check out more of what my co-conspirator Andrew Benjamin is doing on
Yeah, I actually listened to his Ryzen recap in the car on the way home. Just to kind of hear what he was saying.
right. But still, podcast. Sorry, had to do my little shtick. But still, though, if you want to check out more of what he has, you can follow him on Twitter X and on Instagram under those two aliases you see in the banner. And again, like I said, I'm gonna have to edit my ass off in post trying to get all the links down so that y'all can actually see the links to what Focus Fights has and what I have. And oh, by the way, just wanted to basically run this by you. I have just started a Substack account for Focus Fights, the audio podcast, which I hope to do more. I mean, which I, with the help of some people, will hope to do more to, put out some articles because let's just say, in this day and age where everybody has an opinion, it's always good to stick out, you know?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, if you follow us on Twitter at Focus Fights or even on Instagram, which I hope to post more on there through Focus Fights as well. I will definitely post more about the Focus Fights Substack account so that y'all can see more of what we have in store. But other than that, Todd, is there anything that you want to say before I put a bow on this?
No, it's just that all those guys, um, whether it's Christian or Andrew or Jay Wolf, these guys that have a passion for the sport, they're not doing it to try and be wealthy. Um, they're doing it because they like it. And, you know, a lot of people come and go. I've seen a lot of people come and go
Mm,
from the 90s to now, and some of them are really successful too. Um, but they didn't, the reason they come and go is because they didn't really love the sport. They may have loved it for a period of time, but their focus was not the sport. It was more what they can gain. And I think guys like us, guys like you, Andrew, and Jay Wolf, other people, they they're the ones that kind of hold things together. I would say in a way.
well,
The fans who have the passion to do something. Do you have the passion
yeah.
to keep doing it? And that's
I mean, I would hope to at least have the passion to keep doing this and, at least have people join me at the table, so to speak, just to talk about this because it just sucks to talk about this shit by myself.
yeah. Well, I'll help you out with that.
Yeah, I mean, I would appreciate it, dude. But
Yep.
again, it's great to get a boost from one of the originators of Japanese fight coverage, at least on this side of the Pacific.
Yeah. I mean, there was a time where that's what I was exposed to as a young person in my early 20s in Hawaii. We were exposed more to Shudo and Pride and things like that than the UFC, I would say. So I've always liked the sport. It's just that because it's taken us a few steps back, it's kind of harder to um, just take it all in.
Come to think of it, do you think it's even harder for the JMMA beat to get back into focus?
Oh no, no, no! I'll bring that back in. It's just a matter of how much I want to do it, and doing it at a time where there's a lot to talk about. Because me, I don't really like to do event to event. I more like to do stories. Like, okay, what's going on here? What's going on there? Where is this leading? That kind of thing.
Oh, like following the trending topic.
Yep.
I feel you. I mean, especially considering the fact that, like I said, I'm getting back into, typing and writing more. Hopefully, hoping to get more stories out, get my podcast out, even though it's been out for damn near 4 years. But I mean, even though I've been doing this podcast shit for the last 13, but still, though, I mean, I'm just taking it one step at a time, and
Hmm.
appreciate, more people just coming to the table and just talking more about this. I
Yeah.
mean, it can't just be me doing this.
Yeah. There's people out there. You just gotta, you know, you'll find them. I mean, like I said, I'll try to help you out, and I'm sure there's people in the Discord who probably would like to talk about some of that stuff. It's just, can you get them to agree to a time or whatever?
Oh, yeah, hopefully I can. But speaking of time, that's all of what we have for now. As they say, the tape machines are rolling, and we're desperately out of time. A little wrestling humor, Tony Schiavone. But still, though, for Todd Atkins, I have been the Chillmeister J. Christian Gary saying, peace, my peoples, one and one love. Well, protect yourself at all times. Keep fighting because you never know who might hear your story. And I mean, I would basically do Jay Wolf's line, pride never dies, pride is rising. But let's just face it. If you see a if you see a good fight or if you see a good promotion, be sure to show it as much love as you can because you never know how much that love will be given back in tenfold if you show it enough to the point where they reach the heights that a promotion like Ryzen has seen. And that's all I gotta say about that. Other than that, like I said, I mean, I know I said it before, I'll say it again. Happy New Year. You know, hopefully 2025 will be the best year of your, well, actually not just of your existence, Todd. I'm talking to the people. Hopefully 2025 will bring out the best in all of you. Project Be Damned, you know, craziness in America be damned. And hopefully we can continue to do more of these Two Focus Fights audio. Until then, we're out. We're done. Catch y'all later.